Welcome to the Table Talk Biz Edition show. I'm your host Camila Baptista. Today my guest is Candy Davis. Welcome, Candy. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Could you do a brief introduction on yourself and a little bit about your background, please?
Sure. My name is Candy Davis. I am a tax accountant in Canada, and I specialize in the taxation of crypto assets specifically. A little bit about my background. I am from the Prairie provinces of Canada and now live in Alberta. I have a background, like my early education is in psychology and sociology. And my goal, so say 20 years ago, my goal was to get into law school. I wanted to practice tax law. I had somebody very close to me that was a judge. She's now passed on. But she was such an inspiration in my life. And so I had wanted to follow in her footsteps and already was working in accounting and had interest in there and thought, well, I'll go into tax law. And actually what happened was that the first year I applied for law school after my other degrees, I did not get accepted. And that was the first big lesson in my life that you need a plan B. That sometimes you need to be able to pivot, because I did not have a plan B. I was convinced that this is what I was doing. And yeah, that was an important life lesson and probably set me up for being much more adaptable now. So at that point, I decided, well, I want to work within the tax realm. What am I going to do? And I was already, I had an accounting and bookkeeping company at that point. So I went and got my CPA, which, still took a few years and was grueling. And I came out of that doing general practice. So, I worked in every field to do with tax, would provide services to absolutely anybody, and realized that I had a specialization and an area, a niche market that I could offer services in. So, and that was crypto assets. So back in the day, I was mining cryptocurrency. Like as soon as crypto came out, I was all over it. And that's because I'm super, super nerdy. So I was playing video games and doing all the super nerdy computer things when Bitcoin, the first crypto, was invented. And of course, the people that ended up mining crypto assets back then were the nerdy people playing video games. So it was a natural evolution for me to end up there. And when it came out of everything with my CPA and thought, what am I going to do to set myself apart? It was natural that as an accountant, I would work in a crypto asset field and, hopefully add value to that part of the world, which was the Wild West of finance and tax at the time.
Yeah. And you told that you have been on crypto since 2010, and back then, Bitcoin was practically unknown. And what was the most surprising evolution you have seen in the marketing and in the industry by far?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's changed so much over the past 15 years. Surprisingly, Bitcoin, so the original cryptocurrency, was invented. Its role, or what people assumed it would do or be, was to be a medium of exchange. So a way that you would buy goods or sell services. And what it actually ended up being was more of an investment. So not just Bitcoin, but all the crypto assets that came after it surprisingly have been used more as a type of investment or a nature of trade. So that was unexpected. Even the amount that it's gone up, like Bitcoin specifically, when I started mining Bitcoin, they were pennies, like under $1. And now we've hit like 140,000 Canadian. That's unheard of. So as a speculative investment, that I did not see coming.
Yeah, for sure. Me and my husband, we always make fun how we should have invest on that time. Like he had some friends that told him like, oh, let's invest on this, like it's cheap. And we always make fun, oh my God, we should have listened to them by that time.
Hindsight is 2020. I got out, like I sold my crypto assets, my Bitcoin specifically, years ago, I think 2012, maybe a little after, and they were worth $1,000. And I thought that I'd made it. Like we didn't even think they'd hit 100. So when they hit 1,000, that's when I sold. And them going up to 140,000 Canadian now, like I have regrets as well.
Yeah. And what is the biggest misconception people have about cryptocurrency taxation?
Okay, well, that would be whether or not it is taxable. I think a lot of people think that, well, first of all, there's misinformation out there. So people go on Reddit and they look for information about how things are going to be taxed, and they don't realize that people on Reddit are from many different jurisdictions. So UK has their own rules, the US has their own rules, Canada has their own rules and legislation. But a lot of people think that if they've bought and sold any type of crypto assets and they're trading them on an exchange, but they've never pulled money out, that they're not taxable. And in fact, in most jurisdictions, if you're buying and selling them, every time you do that, like trade one for another, say a Bitcoin for Ethereum, every time you do that, you're disposing of that original crypto asset. And then you have capital gains and losses. So most of my clients that come to me will come 10 years after they started trading crypto assets, and they'll say, well, I've never pulled money out of that exchange. And they actually have 10 years worth of taxes that they should have filed. So that's, yeah, that's the thing.
And you told me the last time that we talked that you work with a lot of different clients, from minors to institutional investors. And what is the first crypto tax mistake you see your clients make that triggers the CRA audit?
Probably not knowing what type of income they should be claiming. So in both countries, you could be investing in just long-term holdings. So that's usually considered capital gains and losses, or you could be day trading. And I think before crypto assets came along, there wasn't a lot of people doing day trading. That was more of an institutional thing. So actual individuals like you and I did not spend all of our time trading stocks. So there weren't a lot of people that had to claim day trading income, which in both of our countries is considered more of a business venture, and you can't claim capital gains and losses on it. So that misclassification is something that I see a lot of. People want to pay less tax, and so they claim capital gains and losses when in fact they are day traders. And CRA comes along and says, well, this doesn't look right. There's a lot of missing information here. And then when we go back, in fact, they do owe a lot more tax, and the tax filing should have been done a lot differently. The other thing, I think, it's not a mistake in tax filing, but something I see commonly is that people are making uninformed decisions. So you might hear from a friend that there's a wonderful investment opportunity, and then you know nothing about crypto assets, but you decide to do whatever your friend said and go into whatever. A lot of times people are getting scammed. Like scammed because they have no idea what they're doing. They don't know what crypto assets are. They don't know how to know if something's legitimate or not. So that's the other thing that might not necessarily trigger an audit, but is a place where I see a lot of risk and a lot of mistakes happen.
Yeah. And do you have any step-by-step advice for someone who hasn't reported crypto taxes for years?
Yeah, that would be my typical client. Generally, the process would be that somebody would book a consultation with me. So, number one, book a consultation with a professional that is in the crypto realm. So you don't want to go talk to any tax lawyer or any tax accountant, because for the most part, this is a very specialized area and it is not well understood by people in other general practices. So go find somebody that specializes in this area. And then, of course, they're going to help you figure out what you should have filed. So immediately you want to get on filing either those adjustments if you've already filed your tax returns, or doing your original filing. In Canada, we have something called the Voluntary Disclosure Program. And I'm not sure if other countries have something similar to that. But basically what that is an application that you can make to the CRA, and it says, listen, I failed to file all of this income, but I'm telling you now voluntarily. And so you're applying to have them either reduce penalties and fees, or potentially avoid any criminal sort of consequences that might come from that. So that is something that we often recommend, especially if you've been trading for a really long time and you have avoided claiming a large amount of income, we generally push people to go into that voluntary disclosure program and just make sure that everything's good when they're filed.
Okay, and thank you for that.
Yes, for sure.
And what is the biggest gap in crypto and tax education that you see today people are making?
It's probably just that nobody knows hands-on how to do it. So, I mean, tax specialists are trained in a general manner to do general things, as I alluded to before. And so we have theory. There's lots of publications that we've put out, that I've put out, that other people have put out that say, in theory, this is what you would do in this situation. Sort of like when I said to you, well, you're either going to claim capital gains and losses or you're going to claim day trading income. Okay, so we all get that. But what does that mean when you actually are sitting at your computer? What reports do you need and how are you inputting them and where do these calculations come from? And what do you do in these other different scenarios? And that is what's missing. So a hands-on, I call it the nitty-gritty, but a hands-on sort of education for tax professionals and accountants, which is actually something that I've been trying to fill the gap on. And I'm hoping to start putting together some courses shortly because it can't be just me and a handful of other accountants working in this field. Like we have, 6 million Canadians hold crypto assets. Everybody needs to file those taxes. And so we have to do something to really quickly, I think, get professionals on board.
Yeah, for sure. And you told me that you are very selective about who you work with. And what is working well for you right now in terms when it comes to bring new clients for your business?
A lot of my clients are word of mouth. So I would start there and say, I don't do any advertising anymore. I used to spend a lot of money being in the yellow pages and Facebook ads and Instagram ads and anything social media related or otherwise, doing mail outs, back in the day when people still did mail. So what I found a few years ago was that the best way to find the type of clients you want is to reach out and actually network with other business owners. And I don't mean your competition. So I'm not reaching out to other accountants that do tax in my niche field, but I'm reaching out to professionals that complement the services I offer. So tax lawyers, brokers, financial investors and advisors. So those people are people that are working directly with clients and know that they need an accountant and usually don't know where to find one that specializes in crypto. So word of mouth is how I've now for the past couple of years received all of my clients. As you mentioned, there are an abundance of them, and I am very, very selective. So I give preference to clients that have been referred to me either by other clients or by other professionals. And the reason that is, I'll back up. I used to take any client, like any client. It was sort of like you had to make ends meet and you would end up with just sometimes the worst people to work with, like people that did not value your services or your expertise, people that didn't want to pay you what you were worth, sometimes people that didn't pay at all. And so I realized after some time that if you got rid of all those clients, and you only started getting your ideal clients. So people that value what you're doing, people that are knowledgeable on their own in this area in which they are participating. Those types of people are the people that are going to refer similar people to you. And so it ends up just being a whole bunch of ideal clients rather than you having to sift through whatever's coming your way.
Yeah, that's true. I think this works in a good way when you have a big amount of people that you know in your network that actually need your service so they can make a referral between them. Yeah, I think in your case it's a really particular case because you have a huge network. So I think this brings you good and qualified clients for your business.
Yeah, and that network, it doesn't just appear on its own. Like you do have to put in the effort to go the places where you're going to meet similar professionals. And I think that's the thing. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. So you can't just sit at home and expect that all these things come your way. So you go out of your way and you introduce yourself to these people. And I think that translates into many different industries and many different careers where you offer something service-based. Like there is going to be complementary I don't know, jobs or careers or whatever to what you do. And there will be people that mesh well with the services you're offering.
And Candy, what is your biggest priority right now? Is it scale? Is it efficiency? It's something else?
Work-life balance, which I know sounds weird for most people, especially professionals, but work-life balance is something that I lacked in my life for many, many years. I actually experienced burnout, which for anybody that's gone down that road and had real burnout, it's a terrible thing. So my focus has really been on scaling my business, but scaling it almost down. Work smarter, not harder, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And being able to both succeed in what I'm doing and have more time for living and traveling and family, because there's nothing more important than that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you told me before as well that you automate your business at the point that you don't need administrative staff. And what was your approach to identify which process to automate, and how do you maintain your personal touch with your clients?
I'll start with the last question. Personal touch is always maintained by communication. So I think that what I offer that a lot of other accountants don't is that I communicate directly with them. A lot of accounting firms have, there's an admin staff or there's a receptionist that talks to the client and does all that back and forth. And clients don't like that. Honestly, like you wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that. What I want is to talk directly to the person that I am paying to help me with whatever. So that's how I focus on the personal touch side of things. As far as automating things to the point that I didn't need admin staff, that's the greatest thing that's ever happened. I've always said that staff that don't earn money, so they're not providing a service that you can bill out, are sponges. And that's not a bad thing. That's not an insult to the sponges out there. They're necessary. But those are positions that are not, they're just spending money, right? Not making money. And so I looked at what is it that this position does and how much of this position could be done by something else, by technology, by AI. So the biggest part of that for what I do would be communication and scheduling. Half of the emails that come in are people that are inquiring about something and they'd like to book an appointment. The initial stuff that I don't have time for and that an admin would normally address. Well, now I've got it to the point where I have scheduling that does itself. Clients book in online. My schedule completes itself. Everything's sort of pre-planned for me, and I don't even have to do that initial correspondence with clients. Like all the information goes to them, the prospective client, as soon as they email. So that's half the battle right there for me.
Yeah. And which part of your operations that you don't use AI?
What parts don't I use AI?
Yeah, that you don't have any AI integrated, and why?
So I use technology and AI for most of the things I do. I think the only part that doesn't use it is my hands-on. So I provide advisory services. Those advisory services have to come from me and my knowledge and my brain. So say we're talking about something like ChatGPT or an AI research software. Those are fantastic. And don't get me wrong, I use them. I use it to cut through a whole bunch of other stuff that doesn't need to be seen to do my tax research, right? We really can narrow it down. But at the end of the day, usually that stuff isn't minute by minute. It doesn't have access to everything that's happening all the time and the changes in legislation and this and that. And sometimes those AIs hallucinate and they will give you data that does not exist or is incorrect. So my specialty and my knowledge has to come from inside my head. And at this point, that's something that AI cannot replicate. Also, the actual processing of tax returns and knowing certain nuances is something that AI is still not in a position to be able to do, so that's also on me.
Yeah, for sure. And how do you think AI will change the crypto accounting in the next 2 to 3 years? What other people and other business should prepare to stay ahead?
I think for the past I don't know, 15 years. It's just been a fear thing. Like the media has been fear mongering, like AI is going to replace everybody. And, we're not going to have any of these professional service jobs anymore. I don't see that being exactly a thing, but sort of a thing. And what I mean by that is AI is going to replace a lot of the data entry that we in this field would normally have done. Like bookkeeping, AI programs can already self-learn and code things and make decisions on its own. And they do a pretty good job for bookkeeping. You scan a receipt and everything happens on the back end. You don't need to know much for that. So there's going to be parts of these industries in the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years that are going to be completely replaced and aren't needed anymore. What I think that accountants need to be prepared for is shifting to more of an advisory role, because that is where the value is that we can offer clients. I'm sure that AI is going to do amazing things. Like if you think about the possibilities with real-time data analysis, you could have, say, your trading portfolio in crypto assets. You could have it AI analyzing it consistently and giving you tax planning ideas, like how to minimize your tax, do tax harvesting right now on these certain holdings in your portfolio. Like there is the opportunity for things like that, which would be amazing, absolutely amazing. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities for AI to assist this industry and make it easier both for accountants and for individuals, but accountants need to be able to pivot with that.
Yeah. And what do you think that it will take for the industry in general to fully embrace these transformations?
The old accountants need to die off. And what I mean by that, I'm middle-aged. I just realized that last week. It's very hard for me to reconcile. But anyways, the younger generation, the demographic that is growing up with these technologies, it's second nature to them. So as they come into the professional fields, they are going to be adopting these technologies and they are going to replace the archaic systems that are currently in place. I've always been rather forward thinking, so I search out new technologies. But still, it's a learning process for me. So as it becomes just an embedded part of society, as time progresses and older accountants retire and newer accountants come in, that's where we're going to see the shift. And I think it will be similar in many other industries. So they don't actually have to die for it to happen, but we do have to have an influx of younger people that come into these professional careers.
Yeah, I think as it goes, I think the professionals will need to adapt. If they wanted to keep with the market, they will need to adapt for
Yeah,
sure.
and to be able to continue to provide value, because as I said, that value shifts. Like people aren't going to pay you $1 million to do their bookkeeping services now when they know that a program can do it really quickly, right? Like you still have to be able to add value in different ways. So that's another way that you have to shift and pivot all the time.
Yeah, for sure. And are there any repetitive task or process that you wish you could automate in your workflow today to free up your time for more strategic work?
Yeah. Specifically in my job, where I was speaking about tax returns, making financial statements, there's a lot of things that we do behind the scenes. I don't even know if people know we do them, but we adjust financial records at the end of the year. So we'll make something called adjusting entries. So say, for example, you paid for insurance for something, but actually we need to put that in as prepaid insurance, and then we accrue it over a period of time. So every month, a certain amount of that gets applied towards an actual interest expense that we write off. As accountants, we need to make an adjusting entry at the end of the year for that. There is no reason that we can't have advanced learning software that can see that those things have happened and do those calculations and adjusting entries for us. And I think that that's what I would like to see happen, because those are repetitive tasks that we always have to look for in every single file that we do. And it's sort of wasted time for us as professionals.
Yeah. And what questions do you wish people would ask you more about your work?
Why do I do it? I wish people would ask, really, out of all the things that I could be doing, why specifically am I working as an accountant in the crypto realm? Because I think that people people just assume that you end up somewhere and you get stuck there. But really, the truth is that I had to pivot and I had to do a lot of things to end up where I am today. And if anything, that's a story that shows that you can end up anywhere you want to and you're never in a fixed position. And if people ask me that, I would tell my story all the time, you know? And I love a challenge. I absolutely love a challenge. In my career, it's at the beginning of a certain time or a certain whatever, right? With all this digital stuff and cyber stuff. So to be at the very beginning of that means that you are constantly learning and you're constantly doing research and you have to figure out what new things are on the fly. Like I have clients to me and they say, oh, I bought this and I'm doing this with this and I've never heard of these crypto assets and I've never heard of them being used in this way. So for me, it's exciting. Really exciting.
Yeah. And you work in a specific line. And what do you think is the first step for other people identify in themselves their unique expertise as you did?
I love that question. I love that question because I think that we all have a special uniqueness that we can capitalize on. I think it starts with figuring out what your interests are and what your hobbies are. Like, what do you actually like? What are you interested in? And then what is it of those interests or things that you like to do? What is it that other people don't do? So there's something that you like. There's a part of you that all your friends don't do. And so for me, that was crypto, right? Which I understand is a very specific niche thing. But I think that everybody has a little nerdism in them, a little thing that's their thing. And then you just figure out how can I incorporate that niche part of me into what I do for a living or into what I want to do for a living. And that's how you set yourself apart. That's how you find your niche market and your specialization and your uniqueness.
Yeah, for sure. And if you could magically do something at your business today to fix or improve, it's a magical thing, could be anything. What it will be?
I think that would be going back to I don't want to spend my time doing any data entry or any year-end adjusting journal entries, things like that accountants have typically done. I mean, we have the knowledge to do it and that's why we do it. But for me, we can be so much more. So it would really be to take that out of the equation and let us flourish as what we're meant to be as advisors and that end of things.
Okay. And what's for next? What are you most excited about the coming 6 to 12 months? What are your goals?
In my field, you never know what's coming because it's changing all the time. I am ready to embrace any new opportunity. So I have so many different ideas right now. One thing that I really want to focus on, not just on helping my own clients, but would be the promoting, educating, getting accountants more educated on this realm, getting tax lawyers more educated in this realm, and helping individuals too. So I'd like to put out a bunch of courses, a bunch of podcasts, a bunch of publications that focus on the accounting side of things for accountants, maybe things like risks and scams and fraud when it comes to individual education, but something just to increase public awareness. That would be probably my focus for the next year or two.
Yeah, and we look forward for you to share your expertise with us. All right, Candy, thank you so much for your time today for our talk. I appreciate so much. And where people can learn a little bit more about your work, where they can go if they need to find you.
Sure, I'm on LinkedIn, Candy. So Candy, just like it sounds, M. Davis, CPA. So LinkedIn or my website, it's a mouthful, www.cryptocurrencytaxaccountant.ca. .ca because I'm Canadian only. So for the rest of your viewers, lots of good knowledge out there, but I can only provide advice on Canadian taxation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.